The way that I approach sales training, and then I think the way that you should approach your sales presentation, is to most efficiently and effectively use your time on the highest odd prospects that you come across. We all know, I think, once we've done this for a while, that not all prospects are created equal. There are some prospects that are better than others. And the truth is that we want to spend all of our waking hours at first trying to find those prospects that are better quality. And then B, spending as much time as possible with those better quality prospects to give us the highest chances of converting said prospects into closed deals and into activity, into applications, closed applications. So when we look at the qualification process, the key thing that you have to keep in mind is that this is an objective process. What do I mean by objective? This is a process in which we can apply the question, is this a person I should talk to or not, in a fashion based off of the facts that are presented to us. I find that having an objective process in place, one that's based off of the acquisition of knowledge through the series of asking questions to determine if the client's qualified or not, is the best course of action to provide a sense of sanity in our everlasting pursuit of finding people to help. So when I talk about an objective process in pre-qualifying, how do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that there's 5 things that you need to make sure that you're doing on every single final expense presentation, face-to-face or over the phone when you pre-qualify. There's 5 factors. So what are those 5 things? Let me describe them to you. First, there is the need. The client has a definable need in having a final expense policy. They can explain to you why it's important for them to have it. Similarly, closely related is the desire/urgency to buy today, that there are some course of action or experiences in the client's life that you've discovered through open-ended questioning, more on that in a minute, that have shown the level of urgency the client has is maximal. They can see the hearse backed up against the front porch and death is coming any minute. And therefore they need to buy a policy and be prepared versus not being prepared. The other 3 factors also important. Do they have the right health? That's the easiest of all, of course, because all of our clients are qualified for the most part within age range because we have guaranteed issue carriers if the first day full coverage carriers don't cover. So health is not a big deal. We need to know what it is, though. Then, of course, will the client allow us to bank draft them? And then will the client also agree to a budget? Now, when we have all 5 of these objectively, positively confirmed, we have what, ladies and gentlemen? We have a qualified high odds prospect, meaning they will have a high odds chance of buying. However, very important for you newbies to understand this. What happens when we have a client who has need, want, health is fine, no bank account, but they say they've got $50 every month they can send in on a direct bill basis? Is this client a qualified prospect or an unqualified suspect? If you are missing one of the 5 factors here of qualifying, you do not have a qualified prospect. You have an unqualified, I call them suspects, like they suspect that they might be interested. All right. I want not to spend an excess second on an unqualified prospect. So as soon as I determine based off of these objective criteria that our client is not a qualified prospect, I'm gone. It's over. I will tell you on a high note, this is an incredibly liberating mentality and mindset to have in this business. First of all, why is that the case? Number one, you don't have to beg. I hate begging. I don't know about you, but there's nothing worse than begging for business. I feel like stooping and below my kind of level of integrity to beg somebody that may not want it is just like terrible. For me personally, I only want to work with people who get it, who are qualified, that are attracted to my offer, that are qualified to be attracted to my offer. And if somebody isn't, then so I'm out the door. Okay. So it's freeing because you don't ever have to grovel and kind of feel bad about yourself, you know, that you were desperate. Okay. So it retains some of your own self dignity. Okay. And then number 2, by the time that you have all 5 of these criteria answered, the odds are very high you're going to close them, because all the heavy lifting that you do in our strategy is done right now in pre-qualifying. You don't wait like the traditional sales pitch and wait till you get to the close. And then after you spend all this time, then start to go after them hard and heavy. No, you don't have to do that with us. You go hard and heavy in the beginning. And it's not really that hard and heavy. That's just you're asking a lot of pointed questions that can be somewhat disturbing. And we'll get to that in a minute. But you get to the point where you're 15 minutes in and you know if your client's a good chance of buying or a low chance of buying. And that's very freeing. It's very liberating. It's a very good thing. Okay. And basically the rest of the presentation's pretty simple if you actually look at it and if you've qualified correctly. So these are why we do this, because your time is the most valuable asset on earth. Okay. So the first phase of the pre-qualifying, of course, is asking open-ended questions to determine what the need and desire of the client is. Of course, this is the most important aspect of the pre-qualifying because it allows us to figure out why the client did what they did, how they think the way that they do, and why they've arrived at the certain beliefs that they do. It is from beliefs and experiences and convictions that people make decisions to take action or not. And the more that we can bring them around and make them present and verbal, the more that will help the client solidify in their mind their belief and conviction. And I believe in like kind, solidify their need and desire. Of course, the first question that we ask in the pre-qualifying stage is what were your thoughts and concerns that prompted you to request this information? This single-handedly is the most important question to ask in the pre-qualifying stage. Why? Because it is the why question. Why did you do what you did? Why did you actually send back this card after throwing away the last 3 dozen you got over the past 10 years? What now has happened that has prompted you to take this risk of talking to a salesperson like me about buying life insurance? Something in the person's life has happened that outweighs the risk of talking to a salesperson, so much so that they're willing to take the risk. I think it should be within your intrigue and your curiosity to find out what that why is, because ultimately the reason they purchase will stem from this, what I like to call inflection point in the past. The life cycle of someone who becomes interested in a product like life insurance and then eventually purchases all stems essentially from some life event that's happened. Most, if you think of life insurance sales, most of life insurance is sold based off of life events, mortgage protection probably being one of the most familiar ones, and certainly Medicare. You turn 65, better get a Medicare plan. You just bought a house, you might want to consider life insurance, right? So most of the insurance decisions we make are based off of changes in our lifestyles or changes in our life. And final expense is no different. What is the number one reason people buy a burial insurance plan? It is because the death of a loved one that died suddenly or slowly and did not have life insurance or did have life insurance. And thus came a story about how preparation was good or how not being prepared was a terrible burden that was carried by somebody in the family, maybe the prospect or somebody else. So the point being is we have to revisit what that inflection point was in the client's life and really dig deeper than deep into what it was about that experience that caused them to be interested. Okay. So many times some follow-up questions will go over after we ask, what were your thoughts, concerns? We'll ask them questions like, so what are you doing right now for your existing life insurance coverage? Notice the presumptiveness of that question. I may not have asked them about life insurance, but I'm going to assume my client's intelligent. I'm going to assume they're smart. They may not be, but that I'm going to assume they have life insurance because I know that about half the time they're going to say no. And when they say no, I'm going to essentially act surprised and say, really? Well, God forbid, if you died tomorrow, what would you do? And I'm going to put the pressure on them in a good way, internal pressure, internal tension, on getting them to feel and live what it's like if they died and didn't have coverage. Now, why do I do that? Because life insurance is the most intangible product that's out there. You have to die to get it. You have to die to get life insurance. How many products are like that? None. But we're asking somebody to buy something that they will never, ever fully realize the ultimate benefit from. So that's why we have to go to this level or this extent to get them to feel the pain and the fear and the tribulations of what would happen if they're unprepared. Likewise, if somebody had coverage, or say they had coverage, I congratulate them on making good decisions. And then I ask them, why would they want any more than they have? Or I might ask them, so what does your existing policy do for you? Why did you get it? Because we want to know what the client has, why they were motivated to buy it, and certainly qualify and review the policy to see if there may be some inferiority in it. Perhaps, not always, but perhaps replace it with a better policy. That's always an option that we're looking to leverage if the ability is there. So the point is that we want to go through all these motions because it's imperative to get the client thinking about the hearse backed up against the front porch. And again, the hearse backed up against the front porch is a phrase that I use to kind of visualize what it's like to die and see it happening to you, because most people walk around and, I mean, people who are not even in perfect shape, you know, they think bad things happen to other people, you know, and aren't as motivated to be prepared, even though death is a guarantee. It's not a variable that may or may not happen. It's going to happen. So we need to approach this without kid gloves. You know, we need to go in and make it clear that they need to be prepared and worried if they're not. So that series of questions I like to ask, and I think all of you should too, because this helps set the stage at why the client should be concerned, and to connect the things they've experienced in their life with their own, and then to consider the consequences if they're not fully prepared. There's nothing that's going to sell this better, and there's nothing you could say to sell this product better than going through this process and identifying the pain points and then putting salt on the wound and making it so utterly raw that they cannot avoid it because of how painful it is. And we can't prevent the emotion. We can't stop the emotional turmoil from family members bereaved, but we can certainly prevent the financial side. And that's why it's your obligation as an agent to walk them through this pain. I know a lot of you get disturbed yourself asking some of these questions. That's something I've noticed more recently. Agents saying things like, oh, how do you ask these tough questions? They're just kind of personal. And I'm like, yeah, I know. There's no easy way here. We're talking about reality and truth, and reality and truth is not always pretty. But we're obligated to our prospects. We have a duty to them to show them the truth. Now, it's their decision if they're going to buy or not, right? We're not forcing them to do anything. But I think we have a duty as an agent to let the client know exactly what to expect, and to not downplay it, period. Because this could be the last time you talk to them. You have to understand, like, there is a sense of providence with you being in the position of talking to that client about these tough matters. I look at it like that. It's almost, there's a reason why I'm here today. So at this point, the goal here hopefully is to have them qualified on need and want. If, for example, if I were to pause on the presentation and then turn to the prospect and say, okay, tell me why you need and want this. From the answers you would have picked up through this line of questioning, they should be able to answer this. Yeah, I need it because I don't have it and it's bad. If you don't have it because of the experience I shared with you, and it's really important to be protected. You should know with clarity and objective clarity, I should say, what the need is and what the desire is to solve the problem. Okay.